Lieutenant Jessica Miller stood at attention in the gleaming hall of the Galactic Defense Coalition's main station. The massive room sparkled with lights that reflected off the polished floor. She was the only human in a line of the galaxy's most powerful warriors. To her left stood Marcus Reynolds, a being made of pure energy who kept his form only by wearing a special suit. The suit glowed with blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. To her right towered Kate Wilson, whose crystalline body caught the light and split it into rainbow patterns on the wall. These were just 2 of the 12 mighty warriors chosen for this special mission. Commander James Roberts walked slowly down the line, his boots clicking against the floor. Unlike the others, he looked completely normal, another human in the vast space station. The alien straightened even more as he passed, clearly confused by how such a simple creature had risen to lead them. "You're here because you're the best," James said, his voice carrying through the quiet room. "The very best the Milky Way has to offer." He stopped in front of a warrior whose skin rippled like water. "Guardian Thompson, your ability to phase through solid matter has saved countless lives." The liquid-skinned alien nodded proudly. Jessica felt the stares of the others. She knew what they were thinking. What was a human doing here? Humans couldn't shoot energy from their hands or turn their skin to steel. They couldn't read minds or lift ships with their thoughts. She kept her face calm and continued looking straight ahead. "Lieutenant Miller," Commander Roberts said, stopping in front of her. "Your record on Earth speaks for itself. 3 successful missions in the Arctic wastelands, 5 deep-sea rescue operations, and of course, the Mars colony crisis." He smiled slightly. Sometimes the greatest power is simply refusing to give up. A quiet murmur ran through the line. Jessica caught fragments of whispered conversations. "But she's so fragile," one warrior said. "How will she survive if we face combat?" Another wondered. She had heard it all before. The commander moved to the front of the room and pressed a button on his wrist device. A hologram appeared, showing a massive asteroid floating in space. "This is your target," he said. "We've detected energy readings that match ancient weapons of mass destruction. Your mission is to investigate, and, if necessary, neutralize any threats." The liquid-skinned Guardian Thompson raised his hand. "Sir, with respect, shouldn't we leave the humans on the station?" "For their own safety." Several others nodded in agreement. Commander Roberts smiled again, but this time there was steel in his expression. Lieutenant Miller wasn't chosen for her physical capabilities, Guardian. She was chosen because humans have something the rest of you don't. They know what it means to be afraid, and do what needs to be done anyway. He looked at each member of the team. "You all have amazing powers. You can tear apart ships with your minds, survive in space without protection, and heal from almost any wound. But humans," he gestured to Jessica, "humans look death in the face every day, knowing how easily they can die, and they keep going anyway. That's not weakness. That's a different kind of strength." The room fell silent. Jessica could feel the others looking at her differently now. Not with pity or concern, but with curiosity. Maybe even a hint of respect. "You leave in 6 hours," Commander Roberts said. "Get to know each other. Trust each other. Because where you're going, you'll need every kind of strength we have." He saluted and left the room, leaving 12 of the galaxy's mightiest beings to figure out how to work with a human who couldn't bend steel or shoot lightning. Jessica took a deep breath. This was going to be interesting. 6 hours passed quickly on the space station. Jessica sat in the briefing room with the other warriors, watching as a large hologram showed their target spinning slowly in the air. The asteroid base looked like a giant potato covered in metal buildings and defense towers. "The weapon is hidden somewhere inside," Kate Wilson said, her crystal body catching the light from the hologram. She pointed to different spots on the map. "We've detected strong energy readings from these 3 locations." Marcus Reynolds floated forward, his energy form glowing brighter with excitement. "The pirates who found it don't know what they have. But if they figure it out, they could destroy entire solar systems." He turned to look at the team. We have to stop them. Guardian Thompson raised his liquid hand. What's our plan of attack? I can phase through walls to scout ahead. He glanced at Jessica with worry. But how will the human keep up? Before anyone could answer, Jessica stood up and walked to the hologram. Look here, she said, pointing to a small opening near the base's power plant. The pirates need to vent excess heat from their reactors. That means maintenance tunnels. She smiled. Tunnels that were built for people like me. The alien warriors looked confused. Kate Wilson spoke first. But why use tunnels when many of us can simply pass through walls or fly? Because that's what they expect, Jessica explained. She pressed a button, and a hologram zoomed in on the tunnel system. They've set up defenses against energy beings, phase shifters, and other powers. But regular maintenance crews, they won't look twice at someone in a worker's uniform. Commander Roberts, who had been quietly watching from the corner, nodded. This is why we need different kinds of thinking. The pirates are ready for mighty warriors. They're not ready for human cleverness. The team spent the next hour planning their attack. Jessica showed them how to move like regular workers, how to act natural even when sneaking around. Some of the aliens found it hard. They were used to solving problems with their powers, not by pretending to be something they weren't. But what if we're discovered? Guardian Thompson asked. You can't phase through walls or shoot energy beams. How will you defend yourself? Jessica pulled out a small device from her pocket. It looked like a simple metal tube. This is something we humans invented. It creates a localized EMP burst. She held it up. Most of the pirates use robotic guards and electronic weapons. One burst from this, and they're just expensive paperweights. The aliens leaned forward, suddenly interested. They hadn't thought about using technology to fight technology. Their powers had always been enough before. There's something else you should know, Commander Roberts said. His face became serious. We're detecting strange radiation from the weapon. It might affect your powers. He looked at each alien warrior. That's another reason we need humans on this mission. They don't rely on special abilities that can be taken away. The room grew quiet as this news sank in. The mighty warriors looked at their hands, imagining what it would be like to lose their powers. Jessica watched them, understanding their fear. Humans lived with that kind of vulnerability every day. We leave in 30 minutes, Commander Roberts announced. Get your gear ready. He turned to Jessica. Lieutenant Miller, show them how to put on the maintenance uniforms. We need to look perfect if this is going to work. As Jessica helped the aliens with their disguises, she noticed they were treating her differently now. They asked questions, listened carefully to her advice. Maybe they were starting to understand that there was more than one way to be strong. The mighty warriors of the galaxy were about to learn how to be sneaky, like humans. It was going to be an interesting mission indeed. The maintenance tunnel was dark and narrow. Jessica led the way, with Kate Wilson's crystal form providing soft light from behind. The alien warriors had to crouch to fit in the small space. None of them looked happy about it. How can you stand such tight spaces? Guardian Thompson whispered. His liquid form kept rippling with nervousness. Humans work in spaces like this all the time, Jessica answered quietly. On Earth, we have miners, submarine crews, and space station repair teams. This is normal for us. Suddenly, Jessica's radio crackled. A new voice came through, another human. Lieutenant Miller, this is Tom Anderson, your tech specialist. I'm in the control room above you. We've got company coming. The team froze. Through the thin walls of the tunnel, they could hear heavy footsteps approaching. Jessica pressed herself against the wall, gesturing for the others to do the same. The mighty warriors of the galaxy squeezed themselves into the shadows, trying to be as quiet as humans. The footsteps passed by. Everyone relaxed a little. But then they heard a loud clang. Guardian Thompson had accidentally knocked his elbow against a pipe. The footsteps stopped. Someone's in the maintenance tunnel. A rough voice shouted. Send in the security bots. The tunnel filled with the sound of mechanical whirring. Red lights appeared at both ends as security robots rolled toward them. "Now we fight," Marcus Reynolds said, his energy form blazing brighter. But before he could attack, Jessica held up her hand. "Wait," she whispered. "Tom, can you help us?" "Already on it." Tom's voice came through the radio. "Watch this." The red lights on the security robots suddenly turned green, then blue. Then they started spinning in circles. "What did you do?" Kate Wilson asked, amazed. "I hacked them," Tom said, and they could hear the smile in his voice. "Now they think we're supposed to be here. But we need to move fast. They'll figure it out soon." Jessica led the team forward, past the confused robots. The alien warriors watched in wonder as the machines simply beeped happily at them instead of attacking. They reached a junction where the tunnel split into 3 paths. "The weapon's energy signature is strongest down the middle path," Marcus said, his form pulsing with excitement. "Wait." Tom's voice crackled through the radio again. "That's too obvious. Jessica, check the side tunnel on your left. There's something strange about the power readings there." Jessica crawled into the left tunnel, shining her flashlight ahead. The beam caught something reflecting on the wall, a tiny symbol that looked like a warning sign. "He's right," she called back. "This is it. They're trying to trick us into going the wrong way." The alien warriors looked impressed. 2 humans had just solved a problem without using any special powers at all. "The pirates will know we're here soon," Tom warned. "Their systems are starting to detect my hacks. We need to move fast." Just then, alarms began blaring throughout the base. Red emergency lights flashed in the tunnels. The sound of many footsteps and mechanical whirring filled the air above them. "Time for Plan B," Jessica said, pulling out her EMP device. "Tom, can you make it to our position?" "On my way," he replied. "But I should warn you, I'm bringing some friends. Seems the pirates don't like it when you mess with their computers." The alien warriors readied themselves for battle, their powers crackling in the narrow space. But they waited for Jessica's signal before acting. They had learned that sometimes the human way was the smart way. "Remember," Jessica said as she heard the security forces getting closer. "They're expecting mighty warriors with amazing powers. Let's show them what regular humans can do instead." The mighty warriors of the galaxy nodded, ready to follow a human's lead into battle. The real fight was about to begin. The battle in the maintenance tunnels didn't last long. When the security forces arrived, they found only empty passages and confused robots. Jessica's team had already slipped away through a ventilation shaft that Tom had discovered on the base's old blueprints. "I don't understand," Guardian Thompson said as they crawled through the dusty shaft. "Why didn't we stay and fight? My powers could have crushed them easily." "Because," Tom explained through the radio, "the more noise we make, the more time they have to hide or destroy the weapon." He was moving through the upper levels, using his hacking skills to keep the base's cameras from seeing them. Jessica stopped suddenly, holding up her hand for silence. Below them, through a vent opening, they could see a large room. Inside, pirates were rushing around a strange machine. The device was tall and silver, with rings of blue light spinning around it. "That's not a weapon," Marcus Reynolds whispered, his energy form dimming with concern. "That's a trap." Before anyone could react, the machine started humming. A wave of strange energy pulsed out from it. The alien warriors gasped as their powers flickered. Kate Wilson's crystal body became cloudy, and Guardian Thompson's liquid form began to solidify. "What's happening to us?" Kate asked, her voice shaking. "The radiation Commander Roberts warned us about," Jessica said. "They knew the GDC would send their strongest warriors. They built this machine to take away your powers." Another pulse hit them. Marcus Reynolds' energy form wavered so much he almost disappeared. The mighty warriors of the galaxy were becoming powerless. "Tom," Jessica called into her radio. "We need options." There was static. Then Tom's voice came through broken and unclear. "The machine. It's connected to." Main power grid. If we overload it. Suddenly, the vent beneath them creaked. The metal was weakening under their weight. Jessica looked at her team. The greatest warriors in the galaxy, now as vulnerable as humans. "Brace yourselves," she said. "When we fall, run for the doors on the left. Tom will meet us there." The vent gave way with a loud crash. They fell into the room, right in the middle of the surprised pirates. For a moment, everyone just stared at each other. Then chaos broke out. The pirates expected the alien warriors to use their powers. Instead, they got something else. Humans fighting like humans. Jessica rolled to her feet and threw her EMP device. Half the pirates' weapons stopped working instantly. Kate Wilson, even without her crystal strength, remembered Jessica's hand-to-hand combat training. She knocked down 2 pirates with quick punches. Guardian Thompson, his liquid form now solid, used his maintenance worker uniform to trick 3 pirates into thinking he was one of them. "This way," Tom's voice shouted. He had appeared at the left door, holding it open. "The machine's power core is through here." The team ran for the door, staying low to avoid laser fire. But just as they reached it, the machine pulsed again. This time, the energy wave was so strong it made the walls shake. "It's overloading," Tom yelled. The pirates lost control of it. "This whole section is going to collapse." Jessica looked at her team. The mighty warriors of the galaxy were scared, not of battle, but of being trapped without their powers. They had never felt so helpless before. "Welcome to being human," she said with a grim smile. "Now let's do what humans do best, survive when everything goes wrong." They ran through the door just as the ceiling began to fall. The mission had changed. Now it wasn't about stopping a weapon. It was about staying alive long enough to escape a collapsing base. And for that, they needed human survival skills more than any special powers. The base was falling apart around them. Without their powers, the alien warriors followed Jessica and Tom through the crumbling corridors. Emergency lights flashed red, and warning sirens filled the air. "The pirates are evacuating," Tom said, checking the computer panel on the wall. "But they've locked down all the escape pods. We need to override the system." They reached a large control room. Screens covered the walls, showing different parts of the base. Through the windows, they could see escape pods launching into space, carrying pirates to safety. "Can you hack it?" Jessica asked, watching as more sections of the base collapsed. Tom shook his head. "Not from here. Someone needs to go to the main control panel." He pointed to a metal door across the room. "It's in there, but—" He paused, looking worried. "The radiation from that machine damaged the door controls. It'll have to be done manually." "I'll go," Marcus Reynolds said, but he was still weak from losing his energy powers. "No," Tom said firmly. "I'm the only one who knows how to reprogram the system." He looked at the team. "I have to do it." The door was partly open, but it kept trying to close. The mechanism was broken, making the heavy metal door slam up and down randomly. Tom would have to time it perfectly to get through. "This is too dangerous," Kate Wilson said, her crystal form still cloudy and powerless. "We should find another way." But Tom was already moving. He waited for the door to rise, then rolled forward. He made it halfway through when the door's system sparked. The heavy metal slammed down fast, too fast. The sound of the impact made everyone jump. Then they heard Tom scream. The door had caught his right arm, crushing it just below the elbow. The alien warriors froze in horror. They had never seen one of their own lose a limb. Their powers had always protected them. But now they watched as a human dealt with this terrible injury. "Tom," Jessica ran to the door. "Don't move. We'll get you out." But Tom's voice came back steady, even though filled with pain. "No time. The base is breaking up." He took a deep breath. "Jessica, I need you to help me. Get my med kit from my back pocket." The alien warriors watched in shock as Jessica pulled out a small medical kit. Following Tom's calm instructions, she tied a special cord, a tourniquet, around his arm above the injury. "Good," Tom said, his face pale but focused. "Now, when I say now, hit the emergency release. It'll open the door for 2 seconds." He gritted his teeth. "I'll pull free then." Guardian Thompson stepped forward. "But your arm." "It's just an arm," Tom said. "Humans lose limbs sometimes. We adapt. We survive." He looked at Jessica. "Ready?" Jessica nodded, her hand on the release switch. "Now." The door opened with a hiss. Tom pulled back hard, leaving his crushed arm behind. He fell backward but immediately pushed himself up with his remaining arm. Blood dripped onto the floor, but his eyes were clear and focused. "Okay," he said, walking to the control panel. "Let me show you how humans work under pressure." His remaining hand flew over the controls, typing commands quickly. "Jessica, watch the door. Everyone else, get ready to run. We got about 3 minutes before this whole place comes down." The alien warriors stared at him. They had just watched a human lose a limb, and yet he was still fighting, still working to save them all. They began to understand that human strength wasn't about having special powers. It was about keeping going, no matter what. The escape pods were working now, but the team couldn't leave yet. They had to get through several more sections of the falling base to reach them. Guardian Thompson and Marcus Reynolds helped Tom walk, while Jessica led the way, and Kate Wilson watched their back. "How are you even conscious?" Kate asked Tom. Her crystal form was still cloudy, but her eyes were bright with amazement. "The pain should be unbearable." Tom managed a small smile despite his pale face. "Humans are built to handle pain. Our bodies release chemicals that help us keep going." He pointed down a hallway with his remaining arm. "Take the next left. The pods are in Bay 4. A loud crash made them all stop. Part of the ceiling had fallen behind them, blocking their way back. The base was coming apart faster now. "The radiation is making the support beams fail," Tom said. His voice was getting weaker, but his mind was still sharp. "Jessica, check your tablet. There should be a structural map." Jessica pulled out her device and showed it to everyone. "The shortest path to the pods is cut off," she said. "We need to go around through the cargo area." They moved as fast as they could, with Tom giving directions between deep breaths. The alien warriors were amazed. Even with such a terrible injury, the human was still helping them survive. "In my culture," Marcus Reynolds said, his energy form flickering weakly, "we never continue fighting after being wounded. We retreat to heal." "How do you keep going?" "Humans learn the hard way," Tom explained. "Throughout our history, we've had to fight through pain, through injury, through fear. It's not about being tough. It's about not having a choice." They reached the cargo area, but another problem waited for them. The artificial gravity was failing. Boxes and tools floated in the air, turning the room into a dangerous obstacle course. "Perfect," Tom said, surprising everyone. "This will actually help us move faster. Jessica, remember your zeroed training." Jessica nodded. She showed the others how to push off walls and used floating objects to change direction. Even with one arm, Tom moved smoothly through the space, using his legs to push off surfaces. "Your species is full of surprises," Guardian Thompson said as he awkwardly copied their movements. "You're so fragile, yet you know how to handle almost any situation." "That's because we are fragile," Jessica explained. "We had to learn to be ready for anything. Humans can't rely on special powers or abilities. We have to use our minds, our training, and sometimes just pure stubbornness." They were halfway through the cargo area when Tom's tourniquet started to slip. Blood began dripping again, floating in small red spheres in the zero gravity. "Wait," Tom called out. His face was even paler now. "Jessica, help me fix this. The rest of you, keep watch." The alien warriors watched in stunned silence as Tom calmly talked Jessica through tightening the tourniquet. even while floating in zero gravity, even with alarms blaring and the base falling apart. The two humans worked together with steady hands. "There," Tom said when they finished. "Now let's get to those escape pods before this whole place breaks apart. I don't know about you all, but I'd really like to get to a proper medical bay." The mighty warriors of the galaxy looked at each other. They had lost their powers, were trapped in a collapsing base, and were being saved by two humans, one of whom had just lost an arm. Nothing in their training had prepared them for this. They were learning that true strength wasn't about having powers. Sometimes, it was about knowing how to keep going when you had none. The escape pods were just ahead. Through the large windows of Bay 4, the team could see the darkness of space waiting for them. But between them and safety stood one last challenge. The bay's main door was sealed shut. "The controls are fried," Jessica said, looking at the smoking panel, "and the manual release is on the other side." Tom leaned against the wall, his face very white now. He had lost more blood, but his mind was still working. "There's another way," he said. "Tell them about Earth's submariners, Jessica." Jessica's eyes lit up with understanding. "On Earth, we have ships that go deep underwater," she explained to the aliens. "Sometimes they get damaged, and the crew has to escape while water rushes in. We learn to save ourselves even when everything is against us." She pointed to the edges of the bay door. "See those small maintenance panels? They hide emergency release bolts. If we hit all four at the same time, the door will open from the pressure difference. But the air will rush out," Kate Wilson said, her crystal form still cloudy from the radiation. "We'll be pulled into space." "Not if we time it right," Tom said. He pulled a cable from his tool belt with his good arm. "We can anchor ourselves to these support beams. When the door opens, we'll use the vacuum of space to pull us right to the escape pods." The alien warriors looked scared. Without their powers, the idea of letting space itself pull them across the bay seemed terrifying. "Trust us," Jessica said. "Humans do dangerous things like this all the time. We're trained for it." They had no choice. The base was breaking apart around them. Everyone tied themselves to the support beams with cables from Tom's and Jessica's tool belts. "When the door opens," Tom explained, "push off hard and aim for the nearest pod. The vacuum will do the rest." He smiled weakly, just like a submarine emergency escape, but with less water and more space. Each person took position near a release bolt. Tom could only watch, with Guardian Thompson taking his bolt. The base shook harder, and warning lights flashed everywhere. "On my mark," Jessica called out. 3, 2, 1, now." They hit the release bolts together. The bay door burst open with a loud hiss. Air rushed out, pulling at them like a giant hand. The team pushed off just as Tom had told them, letting the vacuum guide them toward the escape pods. As they flew across the bay, Kate Wilson looked at Tom in amazement. Even injured, even in terrible pain, he was giving them directions, helping them adjust their positions to reach the pods safely. "Left pod is damaged," he called out, his voice steady despite everything. "Aim for the right two. 6 people per pod max." They reached the escape pods just as a huge chunk of the ceiling crashed down where they had been standing. Jessica helped everyone inside, making sure Tom was secured safely before closing the doors. As the pods launched into space, the alien warriors watched their human teammates. They had just seen something incredible. Humans using their greatest weakness, their need to prepare for disaster, as a source of strength. For thousands of years, Marcus Reynolds said, his energy form starting to glow again as they got farther from the radiation. "We thought humans were held back by their fragile bodies. But now I see. Your bodies forced you to become stronger in other ways." "We had no choice," Tom said quietly, finally allowing himself to rest. "Humans had to learn to survive without powers, without special abilities. We had to learn to think, to plan, to adapt." Jessica looked out the pod's window at the exploding base. "Sometimes the strongest person isn't the one with the most powers," she said. Sometimes it's the one who knows how to keep going when they have no powers at all. The mighty warriors of the galaxy nodded in agreement. They had learned an important lesson about strength, and it had cost a human arm to teach it to them. 1 week later, the team stood again in the gleaming hall of the Galactic Defense Coalition's main station. But this time, everything was different. The alien warriors didn't stand apart from the humans anymore. Instead, they gathered close around Tom's medical bed, which hovered gently in the air. "The doctors say I'll be fitted with a cybernetic arm next week," Tom said, looking much better than he had during their escape. His remaining hand held a tablet showing the report of their mission. Commander Roberts walked into the hall, but this time no one stood at attention. The team stayed close to Tom, showing a new kind of unity that went beyond military rules. "Your mission revealed something very important," Commander Roberts said, looking at each team member. The pirates weren't building a weapon. They were testing a way to remove powers from alien warriors. They wanted to prove that without special abilities, the mighty heroes of the galaxy would be helpless. "They were wrong," Guardian Thompson said, his liquid form flowing with emotion. "They didn't understand that taking away our powers would teach us something more valuable." Kate Wilson nodded, her crystal form now clear and bright again. "We learned that true strength isn't about having special abilities. It's about knowing what to do when you don't have them." Marcus Reynolds floated forward, his energy form glowing softly. "The humans showed us that being vulnerable doesn't mean being weak. They taught us that preparation, training, and teamwork are powers too." Commander Roberts smiled. "That's why, starting today, all GDC teams will train in human survival methods. Every warrior will learn to work without their powers, to think like humans do." Jessica looked surprised. "You're changing the training because of us." "Because of Tom," Commander Roberts corrected. He turned to the injured tech specialist. "You lost your arm, but you never lost your focus. You showed the galaxy's mightiest heroes what real courage looks like." Tom shook his head modestly. "I just did what any human would do. We're used to being the fragile ones, the ones who have to think our way out of trouble. And that's exactly what makes humans special," Kate Wilson said. "You turn your biggest weakness into your greatest strength." Commander Roberts held up a new badge. It showed a human figure standing tall among stars. "This will be the symbol of our new training program. It will remind every warrior that true strength comes in many forms." The mighty heroes of the galaxy looked at the badge with new understanding. They had started the mission thinking humans were too fragile for their team. Now they knew better. "I have one request," Tom said, sitting up straighter in his medical bed. "When I get my new arm, I want to help train the other teams. They need to understand that losing a power or getting hurt isn't the end. Sometimes it's just the beginning of finding a different kind of strength." Jessica smiled at her friend. "Humans have a saying, 'What doesn't kill us makes us stronger.'" "No," Marcus Reynolds said thoughtfully, his energy form pulsing. "What doesn't kill humans makes everyone stronger. Because you teach the rest of us how to survive." Commander Roberts looked proudly at his team, aliens and humans together, each understanding their own strength better because they had learned from each other. "The pirates thought they could weaken us by taking away powers," he said. "Instead, they helped us discover the greatest power of all, the human ability to adapt, to survive, and to teach others how to do the same." The mighty warriors of the galaxy nodded in agreement. They had learned that being powerful wasn't about never getting hurt or never being afraid. Sometimes, the greatest power was simply knowing how to keep going, just like humans always had.